am Debra Pascali-Bonaro of Orgasmic Birth and Pain to Power Childbirth, and I am so honored today to be here with not only a dear friend, an amazing midwife, but a colleague who we just are so aligned with our approach to birth with love and pleasure. So, Red, I'd love for you to introduce yourself and share a little bit more about you with everyone that's with us today.
Thank you, Deb. Yes, also feel like, wow, such an honor. It's evening here in Singapore. I've been looking forward to this moment kind of all day and for days building up. So nice to share with you today. So I've been a home birth midwife, for those who don't know me, for about 12 years. I live in Singapore now. I've been in Singapore for about 6 years, serving women and families here. I was in India for about 6 years before that. So, and then a lot kind of around Cambodia and the Asian region. So this is very much where I call home these days. I have a little boy who's 2, who's busy with grandparents who are visiting from New Zealand right now. So hopefully it's like bedtime. So hopefully he gives mommy this time together and he's busy with grandma. So yeah, just super excited to be here to have this conversation, because probably like you, Deb, you know, being in the world of birth and working with women, it's just the kind of onslaught of birth horror stories that I hear so much, is so much what fills kind of the internet and all of our feeds. And so just having the opportunity to talk about another way and discuss another way is just so, makes me so happy.
Definitely. And I have to say before we start, because it was so much fun, we were just over on Instagram. I hope maybe a few of you even came over from there. And we were talking as we get started. For me, being in New Jersey, it's early in the morning. So I have my coffee in this cup that I love, Thoughts Become Things, Choose the Good Ones, which falls right in line with how Red and I feel about birth and really focusing on love and pleasure. And share yours, because I love your
yes, look at this gorgeous cup. This is my pleasure cup. Makes me feel good just drinking out of it. I feel like it's like, you know, fine china somehow is just nice to feel like, okay, it's nighttime, I'm sitting here, this is pleasurable to drink out of. It kind of matches my shirt.
Yes.
So, you know, the small ways that we bring pleasure into our everyday life is just, it feels so good, right?
It definitely does. And it's so important. So I hope all of you that are out there have your favorite mug and your favorite drink and are calling in your pleasure as we're about to begin with our 6 tips for a loving, pleasure-filled birth. So I'm going to kick us off with tip 1, preparing for a pleasurable birth. And I think we just even stated it, like simple pleasures. I always feel that no matter what in life, we should have 3 to 5 simple pleasures every day. And certainly there are days that we have challenges, then we need to really work harder to pull that pleasure in. But if we live a life of pleasure, we're more likely to be able to bring those simple pleasures to have a pleasurable birth. So that's kind of one of my beginning tips in there. But I would also say we need to kind of clear the cobwebs. I think that so many times we've heard negative birth stories, or maybe even getting in touch with how we were born, because we were an active participant in our own birth. And sometimes we don't think about it, but if that was a joyful, pleasurable birth, then we have those seeds kind of to pull forward with us. But sometimes if we were born in a time where our birth was challenging, or for our own safety, we needed more interventions to be born, those can still be sticky points that bring us kind of fear or have us think that birth is less than pleasurable. So when we can kind of get in touch with where do our beliefs and values from birth come from, and listen to beautiful, positive, pleasurable, love-filled, orgasmic stories, because we need to balance out and know that we can bring pleasure into any birth, into any situation, into any place. So that's kind of the beginning of opening up our minds to how can we live in pleasure, and how can we start seeing that there is pleasure available to us every day in birth.
Yeah, in so many ways. Like, I think that, like we've talked about before, and just recently when you were here in Singapore, you know, it's not, what I also learned from my own birth is that the pleasure is not only there when it goes according to plan, you know, when it is orgasmic water birth, let's say, but it can be there in a very deep twist and turn, which I had in my birth as well. So how do we prepare ourselves so that sort of pleasure and positivity is sprinkled over our birth, you know, like fairy dust, no matter what the twist is, the turn, and no matter what the outcome is. So it's not just one way, right? Pleasure's everywhere.
Everywhere, every day. And we need to live in it. And I love that you talked about, even in your birth, right? And your birth did take twists and turns. And so many births do. I often think when we prepare for birth, we sometimes forget that we're preparing for two. And as a parent, and you know this now too, our children don't always follow what our desires are. And that often starts in birth, right? They have their own path sometimes because it's their own mind, or for their own safety. There are many ways that when we prepare, we can only prepare our 50% and be really willing to embrace the other 50%, the desire and needs of our babies. And sometimes that greatest first gift of motherhood is to give up our desires to help our baby gently come to earth safely in their way. But we can bring joy, love, and pleasure to any birth.
That's right. This is not just my birth, this is also the birth of my baby.
Yes.
And sometimes, you know, also even just in their birth, they come as our teachers, right? So they're coming to start teaching us things that we need to learn. And that can even be how the birth unfolds as well.
Definitely. So that's a perfect lead-in to your tip, self-love practices every pregnant mama needs.
Yeah, so you touched already on a few things that I wanted to share. I think, you know, pregnancy is one of the most awesome times where we can love on ourselves even more than usual. It's such a epic time of transformation, especially in that first pregnancy. But unfortunately, there's this idea in our culture that slowing down, taking things a bit easier, saying no to stuff that maybe doesn't feel so awesome to us, staying more in the pleasure, less in the shoulds, you know, is something that is very selfish. And as though like selfish is a bad word, but I would encourage every mama out there, you know, be as selfish as you can during pregnancy. It's not a bad word. This is time to nurture yourself, to care for yourself and your growing baby. So when I think of self-care, it's not just physical, you know, it's also mental and emotional. So I have 3 tips for self-love for your mind and your spirit, and 3 for the physical. So the mind body is just what you were talking about. It's the first one is bubble wrap yourself. You know, it's okay during pregnancy to kind of shelter ourselves from all of the negativity that we get bombarded with. You know, remember that the system of birth today, it's broken, and many women who have been through it, you know, they're hurting, they're maybe traumatized from their experience, they maybe had a different preparation than what you did, they built their team in a different way, you know, but that is their story, it's not yours, and you're creating your own story. So So be really protective of your space, of your bubble, of what you allow in, the conversations that you allow in, the images that you allow in, the media that you read and listen to, the birth stories that you hear. And the biggest tip on that is I would just stash a few phrases. So, you know, if you're in a mom's group or having coffee with a friend and you feel like she's about to unload her, you know, maybe traumatic story of birth on you, in that moment, you might not be able to think of how to stop her. So phrases, stashes are great. So you can just bring it up in the moment and, you know, say something like, you know, thanks for wanting to share your story with me, but let's swap stories after my birth. So really protecting that bubble for yourself is so, so key when you're planning for a pleasurable birth. Second one is active relaxation. So every single day, whether it's for 5 minutes or whether it's for 20 minutes, just feel yourself. Feel your breath. Do a body scan when you lay down in bed, maybe. So top of your head, down to your feet. Where do I feel tension and how do I release it? This is going to just create so much more pleasure space in your day-to-day, and it's going to help you so much in birth, learning how to just notice tension and then know how to use your breath to release it away. And then the other one on mental and emotional, and I know you love this one, Deb, too, is sexual pleasure and orgasm. So, man, I find, I don't know if it's specifically in Asia or, you know, probably also you see there all the time, but there's so many myths, right, around like sex and pregnancy. And I know in my body that so many of the myths are really about other people's guilt and shame about their own sexuality. You know, that is not you. So we can just return all of that stuff to sender, right? Your baby is well protected. It's not going to get like poked in the eye or something. I have heard that. That oxytocin that is released when we're pleasuring ourselves or with a partner, you know, it's essential for bonding. And science really does show that whatever we're bathing in, our babies are going to be bathing in, right? So increasing that pleasure for ourselves is so key. And one of the craziest myths, Deb, I don't know if you've heard anything so mad like this, but that I heard from a mama that I was working with. She was like, Red, but you know, sex during pregnancy, we're allowed to do that? I mean, my obstetrician, no, get this, my obstetrician told me that we needed to be really careful because if we had sex during pregnancy, we just might turn our baby into a sex fiend.
Oh my goodness, I've never heard that.
Oh my gosh. Right. So, but these are the kind of things that women are being told, you know, which is just absurd. So, you know, it's good to have pleasure. Go for it.
Yeah.
Then really quick, 3 on the physical side is such a simple self-care thing that I love to share with all my clients is to dry body brush. So get one like this, natural fibers. Do it every day for, you know, 5 minutes. You can do it always body brush towards your heart. It's great for your circulation. It's going to boost your immune system. It's going to move all that extra fluid that we have around in our bodies during pregnancy. It is going to decrease your chance of spider veins and varicosities and edema and all that stuff that, you know, can be a part of pregnancy. And something so cool about it is that it's like 20 minutes of exercise. Like that's what the heart gets from all that fluid movement. So it's such an easy way to just slow down, appreciate our skin, you know, notice ourselves, notice what that brush feels like on our body before we get into the shower in the morning. It's going to serve you so well.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, have you body brushed before?
Yeah,
Dry brush? Yeah?
That's so fantastic to do it every day. I don't think
Every day. Yes, and so many women have told me over the years, like they swear that that's why they don't, get swelling and puffy, because it's just moving that circulation. We have so much more circulation during pregnancy, right? So another super easy one is Epsom salts. So prioritize a weekly bath, right? This is about slowing down. If you don't have a bath, do a foot soak. Epsom salts is, it is magnesium, it's sulfate. Magnesium we need for every body function. It's going to lessen your leg cramps, your headaches, your round ligament pain. It's just so awesome. Get into the bath, put Epsom salts in there. It's going to boost your immune system, keep you really healthy and strong. And my third one is chug water. I think there is, so many of us are dehydrated, right? We're walking around just slightly dehydrated. So drink lots of water, mamas. You've got a whole water world in there. Your blood volume is expanding. If you can get sort of a liter down in the morning, it's awesome. So water, water, water. Those are some of my favorites. A topic I can do like 5 hours on its own. So I'll leave it there. But
that was fantastic. And I love your analogy of the bubble wrap too. That's so beautiful, to really bubble wrap and how you communicate with others. I love that. Well, let's share our stories after I've had mine, because I feel that's such a biggie. I mean, not that I don't love all the other self-love practices, they're fantastic, but I do think those stories, oh my goodness, people are always determined to come up to you and usually share things that are challenging. So that was beautiful. Thank you. So I'm going to move on, how to claim your power instead of giving it away. And I think this is so important. One of the quotes that I say to my clients, and I train doulas around the world, as you know, Red, and I say to them to share, is that there's power in birth, and it's up to you. You can either claim it or give it away. And I think that people don't realize that there is this incredible energy, power in birth. And so many people don't do the work they need to do to claim it. And so giving it away means that you just show up and don't do any research, because I think knowledge is power. So preparing your body, mind, spirit, and sexuality for birth, having a deeper understanding of how they all work and integrate, allows you then in labor to hold that. If you just show up somewhere and figure out your doctor, your midwife, your nurse, everyone else is going to do everything for you, you're trusting them, and you're not kind of really diving into what your body's saying and what you need. So I feel number one is knowledge is power. Be really educated and informed in a way that serves you, so that you can be part of decision making. We know that when people have positive experiences, there are a couple key elements that frame it. And it's not about how many hours, because we never know, if our labor will be 2 hours or 2 days, and we're blessed in either case. We never know in the end if we do need any extra help for our baby or ourselves to be safe and to go through birth in a whole way. But we know that if we choose our team well, if we really decide we're part of decision making, and we're respected by everyone. And I think we get more respect when we claim it, when we have the knowledge, when we stand in this is my power, this is my body, I'm listening to what my baby and my body want. Because when you feel respected by everyone, when you're part of decision making, and you have all the support that you desire, those 3 elements are the biggest factors in how you look back about your birth on was it positive or negative. So claiming your power and really standing in it, being part of decisions, right, really is going to frame not only your experience to be positive, but something in 40 years you'll look back with joy and love and power. But when people let other people make decisions for them, I always like to say this, like, is there another day in your life that you would wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to have some random stranger make all my decisions today about my body, when I go to the toilet, what I eat, what I do? Most of us go, no. Like, if a stranger on the street tries to tell you what to do, you're like, no way, right? But we have this very weird thing in childbirth that we almost expect that, where if we look in other areas of women's health care, most of the time women are really doing their homework, doing their research, getting second opinions, choosing wisely who provides care. So know that birth is a day you will never forget. And I feel it's so important that we do it with our power, not only to create safety and a memory of a lifetime, but you're going to know your body better than anyone. So make sure the decisions are yours.
Yes, I love that. And I see all the time, I just get blown away by, in Singapore, I work with some women who are, very, very successful women in their careers. They are top of their field. They are making decisions every day. They're making full power decisions for, many people running big corporations, organizations. And I'm always kind of blown away by how that kind of doesn't translate into their birth. In birth, it's kind of like, well, I'm super underqualified for this. I'm not the best person to make decisions. Like, hand over all responsibility. It's yours. And if I can just add to that, I think, most of us today are, well, maybe I'll just speak for myself, but I'm maybe a very controlling woman, right? Like, I like to control some things in my life. I like how I know how I like things, And so I always say to women, like, when they're preparing for birth, control everything that you can control, right? So you control what hospital you go to, if you're in private healthcare, who your midwife is, who your doctor is. You're controlling, who's with you at the time of birth, whether you hire, a doula or a support team. You're controlling how you eat during pregnancy, what preparation you do. So there is so much that we can control and take ownership and use our power for. And when we can control what we can control, I feel like it makes it easier to flow with what we can't control, which is actually a whole lot when it comes to birth, right?
Yes. Totally.
So,
such good advice, because when we frame it all, right, then the things that we can't control, we feel safe within the container to allow ourselves to open so deeply to birth.
Yes. And it also takes out some of the feeling about, like, what if, I think, after birth, to look back on it, and even if we have an orgasmic water birth, I think as women, we're still thinking, like, well, what could I have done differently? Or what if it would have been like that? But I think when birth does take twists and turns, if we have spent so much time in preparing our plan for every kind of outcome, we don't have so many what ifs afterwards. What if I wouldn't have gone to that hospital? What if I would have researched more? What if? That's one of the really hard things after birth, I think.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. So I love your next tip, and I just have to read it because I have read it and just gone, ooh, what do your throat and your vagina have in common?
Ooh, yes, I love this one too, because no one ever talks about it. And I think, as midwives, we see all the time, I think midwives know that if a woman during birth opens up her throat, her vagina is going to do the exact same thing. But I learned recently that apparently midwives were not the only practitioners who know this. So also women's health practitioners know that for, like, a women's health physiotherapist, know that if they're working with a woman who has a tight perineum, a tight pelvic floor, or pelvic floor issues, she also very often, most probably, has a clenched jaw issue. Maybe she grinds her teeth, maybe she clenches, yes. So many women's health physiotherapists have told me, yes, when we are working on a woman's perineum, we always helped her to relax and work on her jaw, relaxing and opening at the same time. So I just get so amazed how, you know, all of the kind of visuals that we see about birth, like in the movies, or, you know, what we have in our mind is that idea of like, you know, what we call purple pushing. So we've got our teeth grind, our face is all screwed up. We're like turning purple and pushing with all of our might. And that is like the worst possible scenario for birth, because if we are doing this, I absolutely guarantee you our vulva, our vagina, our cervix, it's going to be doing the exact same thing. And that's going to cause more perineal tears, more, you know, stress in the baby. So just, if you're pregnant, if you're planning your birth, just maybe prenatally start noticing your jaw. What is your jaw doing right now? What does your jaw do in stressful situations? You know, the reason why it is a mirror is because they're both midline structures. So the lips, the throat, the jaw, the vulva, the vagina, the cervix, they're all along the midline. So they are just, in an embryological way, they were created from the same layers. So they do mirror each other. So definitely prenatally, think about your jaw. Notice if it's tight, use your breath to help relax it. And then in birth, my number one tip I always share is sound breathing, right? So, ooh, ooh. Those low, loud sounds is just like, as we open the throat, we open the birth path. So the kind of deeper, bigger, wider sounds we can use in keeping our throat open is just going to help our vaginas to open, which is, you know, exactly what we need for pleasurable, easeful birth. So sound, 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 sound. A lot of women that I work with share, like, you know, sound was the one thing that helped them to be in the tension of the surges, or release the tension of the surge, help them to stay in their body, help their jaws to stay relaxed. So yes, figure out what is going on with my jaw and then help it to relax.
I love that. You know, I have to share a birth I was at that came to mind when you were saying that. I was with a woman who really wanted to sound, and she was just for a bit kind of feeling shy in a hospital to make sounds. And so I really had to encourage her that that was safe, because we often think, you know, okay, I'm in a hospital, I'm a patient, be quiet. And so what happened was, I said to her, what are some of like your favorite deeper sounds? And she loved to do yoga, and she always loved the Om. So I said, why don't we Om together? And then her partner started Oming. And so every time she had a surge, we went into this deep Om that, even thinking about it, I can kind of feel the vibration from our three voices together. But what was magical was, a little bit into it, there was a knock at the door. So, you know, I went over. First of all, staff doesn't usually knock, they usually come in. So I was really humbled that someone would knock before they'd enter, which I believe that's another issue everybody should do anyway. This is private space. But it was an obstetrician, but not part of our team. And this obstetrician said, I was walking by and I had been standing out here listening. I have never heard such sacred sound in a hospital. And I'm just so touched. Could I come in and join you? And it was like, so I said, well, I can't answer that. I have to give me a minute. So I went and waited to the right moment till between surges and asked her. And I said, there is somebody else's obstetrician, not yours, who would like to join and own with us. And she said, okay. And this obstetrician joined us for a good 30 minutes. And after the birth, actually made a point of coming back to saying that the sound was so sacred that he had never thought of doing something like that and creating sacred sound for birth. So I hope that story gives those of you the courage, if it's not something that's done within your community, to realize sometimes we have to be the bold one in showing people how important sound and birth is sacred. And we find many ways, including our voice, to claim that sacredness.
That's so true. I always teach sound in my birth preparation classes, and sometimes women ask me like, well, doesn't that come naturally? Do we really have to be taught that? Isn't it a natural thing? And I do believe, like, yeah, I think if we didn't live in the world that we live in today, it would be totally natural. But somehow many of us, we need permission today to go into that primal place, to go into that noisy place, to go into that place where we can freely, make sounds, and we don't have to feel like we need to be, prim and proper or something like this. So yes, sometimes we do need that permission, exactly, to be like, no, go for it. And it's why, I usually also recommend that women start practicing during pregnancy. So also as one of the self-care practices, make sounds, make ohms, play with the vowel sounds, see what feels the sexiest, the best for you. Do it with your husband. If you can start doing that together a little bit prenatally, it won't feel so kind of maybe awkward in a hospital room with lots of nurses around and stuff. And it does such a beautiful thing for the body too, in that it sound reverberating in the body triggers that vagus nerve, which is what stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system, right? Which is our harmony, our balance, our calm. So by making those ohming sounds, actually, we can become very calm in stressful situations. So yeah, I can't say enough about sound and how beautiful and how sacred it is in birth. It's so true.
Yeah, so beautiful. So now you have another tip, the most loving way to address an intervention. And I think this is so important so that we are prepared for anything.
Yeah, so what I see is that, so often women who are preparing for a pleasurable, gentle birth, they know a lot of the whys, why they want to avoid the interventions like, Pitocin, epidurals, vacuum, C-section. They know all of the risk involved with those interventions, which is why they want to avoid them. So sometimes I see when these women are faced with needing an intervention, it can be so kind of terrifying because we know about all of the negative things about it. So I really, really encourage everyone that part of a really complete birth preparation is not only planning for, your ideal water birth, but also getting a really clear plan into place for plan B, plan C, and then maybe even plan D, which I usually in my classes say, okay, dads, that's if the baby comes before the midwife, or if before you get to the hospital. So, once we get all of those plans in place, it means that if it indeed comes up during our labor, it will be so much easier for us to flow rather than freeze, right? I see that all the time, like, women plan for the water birth, somehow the intervention comes up, it's needed, and they freeze because, maybe they missed preparing for that potential as well. And the World Health Organization does say 10% of babies are going to be born by a C-section. So we don't know if we're going to be in that 10%. I ended up being in that 10%. And I feel so grateful that I planned out my cesarean to the kind of every detail of it during pregnancy, because just like you said about owning it and not giving it away, is that's no matter what the circumstances. So I knew if I'm going to be lying on that operation table, I want to still be able to, I had the sex of my baby as a surprise. I didn't know that Rumi was a boy. So for example, I made it very clear to my obstetrician, nobody in that room is to say to me, oh, it's a boy, it's a girl. Like, don't take that from me. I want to be able to see what my baby is that I'm having, so that was in my C-section plan. So little Rumi came out, they, brought him across the screen. I saw these big balls hanging down, and it was me that got to be like, I have a son, so that was my moment in birth that I still got to claim and own, even though I was in the, having a C-section. So planning out beforehand, so super important. Sometimes I, encourage women, especially women who are really terrified of, let's say a cesarean, for example. If you're scared of it, if you have some judgment around it, part of going in and exploring that is maybe just using the phrase like, saying to yourself, a cesarean can be my positive bridge into motherhood. Cesarean can be my positive bridge into motherhood. This is, if we have intervention, if suddenly we need something, are we gonna, like, we have two options, right? We can feel like failures, or we can see it as opportunities. And I want women to be able to see it as an opportunity rather than a failure, because like we said at the start, like, baby's 50% of this equation. We don't know what they're coming in with. We can prep all we want. I prepped like to every detail of my birth, but here I was in the water, breathing baby down. He wasn't budging. He was clearly needing to come out another way. So what I would encourage you, mamas on the call with us, if you find yourself in your labor and something comes up, now you need Pitocin, you need to augment the labor to get things moving along, or you need the vacuum, you need a C-section, I would say, first of all, give yourself a moment. So take a moment. It's so important to take your moment. You grieve, you mourn, you cry, you get angry, do whatever it is that you need to do. It's so rarely an urgent emergency where you don't have the time to just be like, okay, I'm going in for the C-section, but can y'all just give me a minute? So being able to get all of our kind of feelings out of the way first, so important. And then we can move into regrouping. So regroup with your support team. Know that you can stay in that positive leading role as much as possible. And then how do you move into like allowing, embracing, welcoming? So what I did and what I do with a lot of women, and I see works really well, is first of all, tell your body that that you've given the permission for that Pitocin. So rather than being in like a contraction of like, oh my God, I need this thing and it's so scary, go into it, right? So hello body, we're okay, we're here, everything is okay. I've given permission for this intervention. You can take it and integrate it and use it to your highest good. Tell your baby the same. You're okay. We need this. This is what's going to bring you into my arms. Mommy is allowing this. Embrace it. Keep the vision of baby coming into your arms. Stay super psychically connected to your baby. Sometimes even more connected to the breath. Even sometimes when we do need intervention, that's when we really need to stay connected with our babies, I feel like, because they get a bit scared too, maybe, and need to hold on to our breath even more. So this is the opportunity of it. And then, like I said, I see and I feel also from my own experience, it's so much easier to welcome that intervention when we've planned it. So you can tell yourself, I can relax. I planned for this as well. We've got this. I've got this. So that's what I wanted to share. Things do come up in birth, and that's okay. And often there's things that we can't control, and we have to go with it. But how do we even bring positivity, love, pleasure into that? Still own it. Still stay in ourselves. Not just say like, okay, let me scrunch up the birth plan and throw it out the window because that didn't work. No way.
Yeah, so beautiful, Red. I love your tips on that. I think it's so important that it's back to kind of claiming our power and owning whatever it is. And that with that prep that you did so beautifully, I love that you were able to be the one that really owned the moment of discovering who Rumi is, and seeing those balls hanging down. That's so beautiful. And I know.
And I think my husband said something really, Ross said something really amazing. He was like, wow, those are huge. Are they swollen or something? Are they supposed to be like that? I was like, yeah, that's what little boys look like after birth. Like, isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
So it was a special moment in our greeting and in our meeting as a family.
Yes, so important. And we all have those little things, that in any birth we can still own and do and claim that makes every birth honor who we are, right? But it only happens when we can prepare, because in those moments, and I also love that you said to take that time to express the grief, the loss, the emotions, and then regroup. And if you have kind of already prepared, that regrouping is easier because you can quickly come into focus of what are the 3 things that you still can do in any situation so that you can feel whole and honored in birth. And when we turn our birth over to somebody else, often our own particular desires are missed in those critical moments. So that was so beautiful. So I'm going to give our last tip, that orgasmic birth is more than orgasm. And I'd love to hear, we'll open up for Q&A after this in a few minutes. So I'm going to love to hear, you can put in the chat how many of you have seen our documentary, Orgasmic Birth. And if not, get on orgasmicbirth.com, because you can just digitally download it right now or rent it, because we have 7 couples that share their intimate experience. And only one, Amber, who I'm always jealous of, has these beautiful 2 rolling orgasms. And I think when many people hear orgasmic birth, they immediately go to orgasm. But Elizabeth Davis, who's another great midwife and co-author of our book, Orgasmic Birth, Your Guide to a Safe, Satisfying, and Pleasurable Birth Experience, we define orgasmic birth in a broad sense. And we certainly want to honor the people that have rolling orgasms. I
wish I was one of them.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Ina May Gaskin in our film, and she did a survey, and of her client base, 21% had experienced an orgasm at some time in labor and birth, and realized that's in a natural environment, right? Very few of those were in the hospital, more likely home and birth center. I don't really know the data, but I know that I've had thousands and thousands of people write me, come up to me, and thank me for making orgasmic birth, because they did have an orgasm. We call it a birthgasm. Many people said it was the most expansive orgasm of their life. And the vast majority of people that have told me have never told anyone, including their partner, not their best friend, not their mother, not their midwife or doctor, not their doula, no one, because they were shamed that everyone else is talking about pain. Are they weird that they felt this immense pleasure. And so part of orgasmic birth must be so people that do have a birthgasm are not shamed. But I don't want people to make that a performance standard, that if I don't have an orgasm in birth, my birth was less than. Because for us, orgasmic birth is taking the power in birth, is owning your birth, is really being conscious of your desires. It's of bringing your daily pleasures into birth, because we know even if we have a sensation that's challenging and we have 3 to 5 minutes in between, we can kiss and touch and laugh and dance and have a drink and use a body brush and breathe. And there's so much pleasure that we're missing in the gaps. And sometimes when we bring pleasure, a lot of times to the gaps, we bring pleasure to the actual surge itself. So orgasmic birth is about being a part of decision making, consciously taking your power. And any person that has any moments of pleasure, for me, that's orgasmic. My morning coffee is part of my orgasmic setting the day. Piece of dark chocolate every day, essential for my life. That's orgasmic.
Mine too.
Yeah. And I put on a song every day and wildly dance for 3 minutes to just like let go of what needs to be let go and claim in that this is my body and I can bring joy to any situation. So orgasmic birth is really fully enjoying and participating in birth. And as you said so well, Red, in any situation, we can bring that element of pleasure and joy. So it's really redefining, instead of a language of fear and pain, which is the predominant language of birth, it's bringing in a broader language of love and joy and ecstasy and whatever pleasure means to you. So I hope that I say to everyone, define your own definition of orgasmic birth. Take ours, but make it your own. And I'd love for people that are listening, what would you say with what I've shared? How would you now define orgasmic birth for yourself? And then what elements do you need to bring to it so you can experience a birth that's both honors body, mind, spirit, and sexuality?
Because we can't separate those things, right? That is us. That is holistic us. We are all of those things all at the same time.
Yeah, totally. And I like the World Health Organization defines sexuality as an essential part of every human being.
Yes.
And like when we define it as that, there's no shame. And if it's an essential part of every human being, why would we sterilize birth to strip it out?
That's right.
Especially when birth is happening deep in our sacred sexuality, right? So it's coming through and touching literally our cervix, our vaginas, our vulva, the clitoral nerves we know are all throughout that, right? The clitoris we think of is really the tip of the iceberg. There's 8,000 nerve endings that are going through that area that are getting stimulated. So I think when we don't talk about sexuality of birth, we're also doing harm because people then are shocked if they feel certain sensations of pleasure, or sadly for those people that are survivors of sexual abuse, of trauma. And we know that that is often 20 to 30% of what we say is reported. And I've worked in areas where it's been much higher than that. And then birth, as you know, becomes a triggering moment for them to go back into trauma. But we have opportunities to prepare people by talking about sexuality and healing sexuality if it needs to be healed, or even enhancing it if it's less than prior to birth. So when we focus and educate, and we do a lot, as you do in our classes, about how do we honor, how do we heal, how do we enhance and bring our sexuality to birth, it has the potential, In our film again, Helen is a survivor of sexual abuse. And if you haven't seen the film, her story alone is so powerful. How birth was her reclaiming moment of her body and transformed her and her life by owning the birth and healing past trauma. So orgasmic birth is such an opportunity for us all to become whole and reclaim ourselves, our bodies, our birth, and bring that power forward.
I love that, Deb. So well said. And it's, I feel so fortunate as a midwife who works, has always worked outside of the system, how I see that all the time. I have this amazing opportunity to see how transformative birth can be. I get the opportunity to be with women in spaces where they feel safe and comfortable to go through whatever they need to go through during the birth process. And so often the feedback is just a birth that I had recently where the mom was like, afterwards, she's just said, I'm like a totally different person. I feel like through the whole process of birth, I was able to let go of so much like stuff that I've been carrying around. And I feel like lighter and bigger and brighter and like really like a whole new person. And I just thought, man, that's the power of birth, and that is what, for me as a midwife, I just feel so sad when I hear all of the stories of what's happening to women who do give away the whole process, and how rather than it being a magical celebration, it is something that is, they're left sort of traumatized by, they're left, with even more kind of shame and guilt, and etc. And it really doesn't have to be like that. I see all the time, it doesn't have to be like that.
Not at all.
And so these kind of conversations together, I hope we can do this again in the future. Yes. Sometimes just like, yay, how do we just, and I love all your work, your film, your book. I mean, how do we just need to keep filling up the airways, right? Coming yes. together more as people who are talking this, who are living this. Like, I do feel that together we're so much more powerful. We can reach, more women together. So I love collaboration more and what we've decided to do together also.
So let's share with our audience, because I think for everyone that's been with us, right, you're seeing how important knowledge is power and being guided by people that can help you prepare. And we have an offer, Red, as a midwife, and your great programs. And as a doula, it's like the perfect combination of midwife doula wisdom. Do you want to share with everyone our little Mother's Day gift?
Yes, well, so Debra was just in Singapore and we were chatting a little bit, what can we do together? And then we got really inspired and excited. So Debra has an amazing online birth preparation program that is Pain to Power. I have my super awesome online birth preparation that is Love-Based Birth. So we were like, wow, I think, we have different styles, we have a similar message, but we have different styles. Like, what if we offered our two programs together for the price of one, to give a super bargain, because who doesn't love a bargain, in line for Mother's Day. So that's what we're doing tonight, is to share with you a limited time offer. So from tonight until what did we say, the 15th of May? So just a week. So just $140 US gets you both Deb's full program, ebook, her all of her knowledge, all of film, all of her knowledge, all of her wisdom, pleasure birth guru right here, Deb Pascali-Bonaro. And then you also get my whole program, which is also super juicy. It's a 5-module program guiding you all the way through preparing for birth, from pregnancy all the way through until new mothering. So,
Yay! And do you want to give them the code? What's the website?
The link. Yeah, so we made, maybe I'll put it in the chat.
Yeah, definitely do.
We made a super easy link that you can, it's easy to remember. It's deb.redsclass.com.
Oh, I love that.
Put it in here, right? See,
Yeah.
This is pleasurable too. We don't have to remember something that's like really hard. It's like Deb in Red's class, how pleasurable. So it's there in the link. Really encourage you all to dive in there, join us. You know, all the stuff that we're talking about tonight is like tip of the iceberg for what we have in our programs, right? And what it is that we can offer to everyone. So I would be happy also tonight maybe to throw in maybe for the first 2 people that sign up for our 2-for-1 deal, an autographed book. I can send it in the post.
Awesome.
So yeah, join us.
Yay. And I hope you'll, you know, I know we have some doulas and midwives with us. Please share with your clients as well, but this is limited time. So for one, and I want to just honor everyone that's here. If you have more questions or comments, please post them in. I just want to read, Nisha wrote, listening from India, currently 36 weeks and have watched your film. Oh, thank you. It's inspired me in creating my birth plan, planning my birth at a birth center, and feel no fear at all. That is incredible, because here is the elephant in the room. When we can get rid of fear, it does so much to let birth open gently. I have a lovely team of midwives who are a rare find in a country like India, who are all for pleasurable birth practices. How awesome. We'd love to know where in India, because it's so good to know you found the team that you desire and deserve. And
I have an idea where that place might be, but I would love to hear from Nisha instead of assume.
Yeah, really, right? I have a thought too. Someone said, please mention the film name, Orgasmic Birth. So if you go to orgasmicbirth.com, you can see the film, but even better, take us up on our offer, because not only do you get 2-for-1, but you'll get the film and our book as well.
Thank you, Haritha, for the shout out that you love my book and have been recommending it to everyone. Thank you. My book. I love my book too.
All right. See, you're so good. I didn't even grab a copy of mine. But
I'm sitting at my desk, so it's really easy. It's all right here.
Awesome. And we have a question. Let me go back.
While you're looking for that, I'm just going to read out what Neha said. She said, so true. Birth transforms us in ways that we can't even imagine. That's what I say to moms who are very career orientated and afraid that a baby may take that away from them. I think it's actually the opposite. A good birth and motherhood can really open you up in ways you never knew. And then her question is, will the recording of this webinar be available for us to see later and maybe share with others? So yes, as long as you are registered for this call, then we will send out the replay link. Is that correct, Deb?
Correct. And you can definitely encourage people to still register. So if you want to share this with friends or family or colleagues, the link that you registered, please have them go back to, and they can register to get it. And we also have, thank you for doing this. I'm a doula and childbirth educator based in Delhi. Here are some of my questions. How do I help a pregnant and birthing woman get in touch with their body and its sexuality, especially in the cultural context where she has been conditioned that it is taboo? Ironic, but true. You know, Red, I'm wondering if you want to address that at all, because you've lived in India, so you have a deeper understanding of that culture. What would you say?
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I was just searching for this link to post here, the registration link. So I just need to go back and read it again. So how do I help a pregnant and birthing woman to get in touch with her body and sexuality, especially in the cultural context where she has been conditioned that it is taboo? Ironic, but true. Yeah, this is something that I'm very familiar with, and I think is very common. I think, you know, as an educator, if you are the one that is maybe being the first person in that woman's life who is encouraging her to explore herself, to get in touch with her sexuality, I think, you know, it's important that we do that first. So I would encourage you, Neha, you know, I'm sure that you already have, but if you haven't, explore yourself so that you can then share how to explore yourself. Like I said, it doesn't have to be anything revolutionary. It can be small things like, have you ever taken a mirror and looked at yourself? Like many women haven't even ever seen, you know, their vulva. You know, maybe you could have a conversation about like, do you know the different parts of your lady bits? Like, do you know that there's a clitoris, and do you know what that's about? And that, do you know that it's not all just a vagina, but there's also, you know, vulvas? And so I think as educators, if we can get comfortable first ourselves, then it helps us to, if we've created a really safe space for women where they feel safe to share with us, then usually it's us who can be the first reflection about like, this is okay and this is how you can do it. So simply giving permission, I think, and starting there maybe can be really helpful.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think showing images and reading stories as well of other people that have done that. I think positive stories of women that have felt safe enough to explore sexuality can really help as well. It is a tough one. I think that not only in India, but they're all over the world. Women have been really kind of put down. Many women, I love how you said that, they've really never seen their own bodies fully or really explored them to be able to feel all the points. The other thing I often say to people is the jade egg. How have you, I love jade egg practice. There is, some people feel, you know, it's not something to start in pregnancy, but certainly it's something that we can do prior. So if we know we're planning a pregnancy in the future, I encourage people use the jade egg, and there are many online classes that teach it if you want to be taught on how to really get in touch with your vagina in a really fun way.
Yeah. And one thing that I just want to add in there as well is that I had a call recently, you know, a live call with someone in our Love-Based Birth tribe who is a functional medicine nutritionist. And we were talking about, you know, natural ways to balance your hormones. And one of the things that she shared was, she was saying, you know, a healthy libido means that you are, like, it's a sign of health, right? It means that your hormones are in balance. Like, we want to have a healthy libido. If a woman comes to me, she was sharing, you know, and has no kind of libido, she's just like not feeling it at all, I'm going to be looking at like, okay, what's out of balance for you? So we do think that, you know, we've been so stifled and oppressed around sexuality, but it's so normal. Like what if we feel like, you know, shagging our partners, like that means that we're healthy, you know, and so those are the conversations that I want to have so much more too, because yeah, it's not India, it's most of the world, you know, religions and all sorts of reasons have just made us feel that we're dirty and that we're bad and that we're wrong, and it's time that we bust through all of that.
Totally. And that's what we do a bit in our classes, right? Our classes are giving you some tools to address that and have discussions with your partner, or just things to think about and journal. We really encourage you to go deeper in this. And I'm going to have to go in a minute, so we're going to be only able to do one more quick question, because I do have to leave to go to another meeting right now. But I see, is it Justine says, having already had one orgasmic birth, which was unattended due to a spontaneous delivery in the car, I'm worried about having to deliver in a hospital, not having the same sense of empowerment. We've recently moved to Saudi and there are no home births here. Do you have any tips for recreating the empowered environment and culture outside of your own and in a hospital setting? What would you say? And then I'll...
Big question. I think lots of different points that we could go into. I think this is stuff that we both go into in our class, in our programs. You know, how do you create environments within a hospital, because we know environment is so key. So I think lots that's there in our program, and I would just say, you know, some of the things I would maybe encourage off the bat is staying home as long as possible, really going to the hospital just to give birth, and then just choosing very well, you know. So even though you don't have home birth, I think you have different hospitals with different setups. So really investigate each of those hospitals, find out which hospital allows you to bring a support person in, you know, which hospital is going to let you turn down the lights and do things your own way.
Yeah, great tip. And I would add to that, in creating even broader ambience, right? I say to people, create a birth altar that you're going to bring in. And again, these will be in the course, but how do you make it so that every sense, what you see, what you hear, what you smell, touch, and taste, all is in that pleasure sphere. And even in a hospital, you can bring all those things to address your senses. And I would also really encourage a doula. And I've actually done trainings for doulas that have come from Saudi Arabia. I train a lot in the UAE periodically. So I would reach out and find who your doulas are, because doulas have a really unique view. They know about the difference from hospital to hospital. They often also know about the difference even within a hospital of caregiver to caregiver. So I would look to some doulas that could really guide you on where they have seen the most gentle, pleasurable births. So that would be a good starting point.
That's a great tip. So respecting time and coming to that time boundary that is there. It's also getting late here in Singapore, so I'm just going to pop into the chat here and just remind everyone. So our special, very limited time 2-for-1 offer that we're giving Deb. You get Orgasmic Birth, the documentary, Pleasurable Birth Essentials, which is your online birth preparation program. You get Orgasmic Birth ebook, workbooks by Deb and other birth experts, 12 months of unlimited doula support. I mean, this is huge. Love-based birth, you get our 5 core modules, workbooks, templates, birth plans, all that kind of stuff. Live sessions with wellness experts and membership into Love-Based Birth Tribe, which is a tribe that I have filled with awesome women who are, you know, doing cool things and wellness practitioners. And all through parenthood, we support each other in gentle parenting and gentle mothering and beyond. So super. Yay. Thank you, Deb, for your time. I loved this.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much, Red. I look forward to much more collaboration. And I want to thank all of you that stayed with us for this more than an hour. And some are already saying thank you. They're joining us. So we look forward to seeing you inside our courses. And to everyone else, we wish you a pleasurable day or night wherever you are in the world. And we hope you'll continue to engage with us and share your challenges and your joys. That's what this is all about.
Yes. Oh, Red, by the way, I'm having my baby at Birth Village in Kochi. Yay! I thought that you were going to be there.
Ah, good. So
I have personal love for that place because I was also there co-founding it with Priyanka. So I'm just so proud of the work that's happening there. That, mwah, Nisha, yay! Way to pick your team. Way to pick your spot. Good job.
Yeah.
Okay, love you, Deb. Can't wait to
too.
talk soon. And thanks everyone for joining. Have a beautiful day ahead, Debra.
Thank you. And sweet dreams, pleasurable dreams.
Yes,
Love
thank you.
Bye.
Good night.